Listo, entonces comenzamos el ensayo de presidencia. Willy, cuando me hables a mí, Willy, listo. Señor.
¿Hago la prueba ya de esto? Vale. Ya hicimos la otra prueba de la...
Adelante, adelante.
Y le dejo ese todo perfecto.
Listo.
Y ya continuamos.
Perfecto. Van a hacer otro ensayo con micrófono desde atril de presidencia, compañeros. Van a probar micrófono de presidencia otra vez.
Aquí haciendo pruebas en el canal de inglés. 1, 2, 3. Muy buenos días. ¿Cómo están? Nos encontramos en la reunión de la 15ª cumbre en Riohacha sobre el Foro Mundial sobre Migración y Desarrollo. ¿Bien? 1, 2, 3, good morning. We are at the 15th Summit of the World Forum on Migration and Development. This held in Riohacha, Guajira, Colombia on September the 2 or 4th, 2025. This moment we are getting ready to have our sessions of the day. As a highlight of the meeting, we are going to have the President of the Republic of Colombia addressing the guests.
If life is a dream, then baby dream on. Until they tell me it's real, I guess I dream on. If it feels like magic, then it probably is. I got this vision going round and round in my head, like a sea of lights lying back in my bed. Dream on, I dream on. Turn up the love, won't you crank it up to full? Turn up the love, give it like we're supposed to do. Turn up the love, and tell me what we're waiting for. 'Cause baby, I wanna be near you. I wanna be near you. If life is a dream, then baby dream on. Until they tell me it's real, I guess I dream on. I got this vision going round and round in my head, like a sea of lights lying back in my bed. Dream on, I dream on. Turn up the love, won't you crank it up to full? Turn up the love, give it like we're supposed to do. Turn up the love, and tell me what we're waiting for. 'Cause If it feels like magic, then it probably is. I got this vision going round and round in my head, like a sea of lights lying back in my bed. Dream on, I dream on. Turn up the love, won't you crank it up to full? Turn up the love, give it like we're supposed to do. Turn up the love, tell me what we're waiting for. 'Cause baby, turn up the love, won't you crank it up to full? Turn up the love, give it like we're supposed to do. Turn up the love, tell me what we're waiting for. 'Cause baby, I wanna be near you, I wanna be near you. Turn up the love.
The distance between us, I wish I could see ya without a screen in the way. I wish it was easy, but baby I will be loving you so far away. So far away. The distance between us, the distance so far away. The distance between us, the distance so far The distance between us, I wish I could see ya without a screen in the way. I wish it was easy, but baby I will be loving you so far away. So far away. Distance between us, the distance so far away. The distance between us, the distance so far away.
I don't know what you've been told, but time is running out, no need to take it slow. I'm stepping to you toe to toe. I should be scared, honey, maybe so. But I ain't worried about it right now. Keeping dreams alive, 1999 heroes. I ain't worried about it right now. Swimming in the floods, dancing on the clouds below. I ain't worried about it. I ain't worried about it. I don't know what you've been told, but time is running out, so spend it like it's gold. I'm living like I'm 90 got no regrets even when I'm broke. Yeah, I'm at my best when I got something I wanted to steal. Been too busy for them problems and problems to feel. Yeah, yeah, no stressing, just obsessing with sealing the deal. I'll take it in and let it go. But I ain't worried about it right now. Keeping dreams alive, 1999 heroes. I ain't worried about it right now. Swimming in the floods, dancing on the clouds below. I ain't worried about it.
Señoras y señores, colegas de los medios de comunicación, les agradecemos ocupar sus
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We are going to start in a few minutes. Thank you.
I ain't worried about it right now. Keeping dreams alive, just wanna dive into your love, your love. Dive into your love, your love. I just wanna dive into your love, your love. Dive into your love, your love. I just wanna dive into your love. I just wanna dive into your love. I just wanna dive into your love. I feel there's something coming over me. It's like a flash in my head. Right here with you is where I'm supposed to be. It's like coming over again. I just can't.
Hacemos un segundo llamado.
Second call, please be seated. We are going to start shortly. Ahora sí.
You can say you love me the most, but I don't care. 'Cause love doesn't keep pushing and hope that I'll stay scared. Maybe you were good for my health for a minute, but now you're like the growth and the wall's gonna get me. You can say you love me the most, all you want here. Oh, you. 'Cause I would have to tear stage by stage how to get there. But I've been tired that I've pity your feelings in and out again like you're all for a season. You can say you love me the most, but it's false care. You can say you love me the most, all you want there. Oh, you summer, in my groove. Feeling like the sunshine, dancing like the moon. I love the way you move it in the room. Nothing's gonna hold me. You make me wanna feel you wide awake. Sunday morning, I'm floating, I'm moving on.
Morning, welcome to the 15th Summit of the World Forum on Migration and Development held in Rio Hacha, Guajira, Colombia from the 2nd to the 4th of September 2025.
No. Muy bien, señoras y señores, con ese tercer
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the third call. With this, we're going to start this summit. To start, we want to inform you that we are having a picture record and a visual one of this public event. By being present and participating in this activity, we understand that you authorize the use and processing of image rights, copyright, and related rights to the dissemination of institutional messages of the Administrative Department of the Presidency of the Republic and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Colombia. We kindly invite all attendees from this moment on to switch their cell phones off and any other communication device to silent mode to avoid interference with the development of this ceremony. Good morning for everyone, to everyone. Welcome to the 15th Summit of the Global Forum on Migration and Development, held this time in the beautiful city of Riohacha, capital city of the department of La Guajira in Colombia. La Guajira has a semi-arid ecosystem and a rich cultural heritage, shaped by the presence of the Wayuu indigenous community and its direct experience with human mobility. This makes the department and the city of Riohacha an ideal setting to engage in dialogue, seek solutions, and define sustainable and innovative actions that promote, guarantee, and restore the human rights of migrants worldwide. This 15th summit that brings us together, it is an international event that convenes governments, international organizations, civil society, the private sector, and experts to address the challenges and opportunities of migration in the context of sustainable development. We invite you to enjoy and participate in the 5 expert panels, 21 side events, 6 round tables, and 5 thematic dialogues that will take place over the next 3 years. We also encourage you to engage with the various stakeholders present at this event so that together we might reaffirm that human mobility is the fundamental driving force of the development of all countries and societies in the world. We will now have the honor of hearing from Ms. Rosa Yolanda Villavicencio Mapi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Colombia. Good morning to all respected delegations, esteemed attendees. More than 35 years ago, a night, a very dark night, I left my homeland. I left in a hurry because my life was under threat, and I arrived to Madrid in a plane. I am, and I have been, a migrant, a woman, and a refugee woman. This is my first act as a Foreign Minister of Foreign Affairs of Colombia. I received the honor from President Petro. I have taken into the office what I have learned from this fact of being a migrant. Our cause is the cause of the migrants, the one that implies the understanding of 2 key elements. First, the human mobility is natural to the human being, to the species, and it is not a privilege. It is a right. Second, that all humanitarian action follows the fundamental principle of being a human. The isolation, exclusion, poverty, discrimination, en route. Although I was received by friends, students, and other refugees, that means the real beginning of a life, an experience of a migrant. And that is the reality that I have lived, that I embraced, and that I promised to myself as my mission from 1985. I have been a migrant that has worked for the migrants. That's what I am. And based on that condition, I am present before you all today. To be the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Colombia acknowledges the migrants for the government of the change. Once the President of the Republic established that the headquarters of this forum would be Riohacha, he did it because one reason. We are in the land of migrants, thousands of people that are in a refugee condition, and that is the reason why this is the reason of the area of the Wayuu people, and that's why they are semi-nomads and also binational in their habits. For what the Wayuu people exist is a single Guajira. All of us are arijunas, foreigners. Welcome you all to La Guajira. And here we are foreigners. And Shuya Wahida, migrants, we live in complex times. Our rights are under dispute. The migration now is characterized by terms that are not even called as irregular. Now migration is known as illegal and is unchained. What is that is showing the lack of knowledge of our biological and evolution origin. We are the product of human mobility. We are a mixed. And this complex context implies huge challenges. We are thinking about fields, even areas. We're creating these fields to impersonate the migrants. We have created fences on the borders and fear from the host communities, and also criticizing strongly the function of the humanitarian systems and the organizations or bodies of cooperation. Also, we have the forced migrants due to the lack of knowledge or the lack of following the international law and understanding that we're following the climate change. And here we need to rethink the conditions for a proper response. So, from my perspective as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, we need to understand this as an opportunity. The current times demand from us transformation and unity. From some years, the mechanisms of international cooperation have embraced collectively the mandate of the localization that at the end of the day means the purpose of guiding as much as possible the knowledge, the experience, and the resources in a conversation in the territories, with the territories and with the communities, because they are the ones that have the vocation of staying in those areas of settlement. That's why the first invitation from the Colombian government, and has been pointed out in many opportunities by the President of the Republic, we want to create an agenda of collaboration focused, targeted in specific communities. And that implies a second goal as well, to overcome the single perspective of the humanitarian assistant, to do it in a nexus conviction of the self-sustainability, the development and the peace construction, the peace building. I'm recognizing here many of the pioneers of transformation, and we need them all. Rio Hacha is the capital of La Guajira. If we characterize La Guajira in general terms, we find many other migrant settlements that are not fully acknowledged legally, without rights, without income. For example, the runaway, most likely the heaviest populated area, and this is just one among many, not just in Maicao, but also in Rio Hacha and also in the municipalities of the high area of La Guajira, in the northern area of La Guajira, which a huge impact on all the area that comes from the Parija Hill and north to return to the neighbor country. Despite all the meaningful efforts throughout the time, in most of the cases, they are still in this humanitarian gap. If we continue with the characterization of La Guajira, we said first that this is the ancestral Wayuu territory. As I previously pointed out, this is the ancestral land of the Wayuus. More than 700,000 Wayuus live in La Guajira. Generally speaking, we have assisted to a detriment on the ways of life due to the economical change, and also, from my opinion, due to the huge difference between the cultural and economic cosmovision that the Arijunans represent to them. This is their land, and we have much more present the lack of water, safe water, with its consequences. The nutritional deficits, mainly in children and also seniors. The abandonment of the agriculture and the traditional livestock traditions. Not many in the academia, they are also showing the lack of identity that is a threat for them. From the local level, if you allow me to point out, the challenges are clear for us. It is important to achieve the legalization of land and also in the informal settlements. In here, my invitation, reiterated invitation for the municipality mayor, City Hall of Maicao, is that we need to allow the formalization process that is already in late stages that would allow the legalization of land and the provision of services as the restoration of rights in a very short amount of time. From our side, we are more than ready. Count with us. With the spirit of this Guajira land, the wind of the desert, the strength of the Caribbean Sea and the ancestral wisdom of the Guayu people can guide us in this meeting. So Rio Hacha, with the horizon of just sand, the land where the border is not stopping but joining instead of separating, let's keep in mind always that the diversity is the source of the wealth and the mix of cultures. That is the possibility of a joint future. On behalf of Colombia, the country, transit and destination and return area, declare the opening of this forum, global forum of migration and development, fully persuade that each step of the migrants, it is a step towards a future that is more humane, more fair, and with dignity for everyone. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you, Minister. Next, we will hear Mrs. Catalina de Bandas Aguilar, representative of the Director General and Senior Director of the Office of Partnerships, Promotion and Communications of the International Organization for Migration.
Con gusto.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning to all. Dear Minister of Foreign Affairs, Rosa Yolanda Villavicencio, thank you so much for welcoming us. Esteemed authorities, representatives of the delegations of the civil society, international organizations, colleagues. It is a big honor for the IOM to join to this launching the opening ceremony of the 15th Summit on Development and Migration. First of all, let me acknowledge the government of Colombia for their leadership and the presidency of this forum for the period between 2024-2025. Colombia has shown huge solidarity and innovation. We want to tackle the challenges of the displacement, internal displacement and migration. As a host country, provides protection and opportunities for migrants and has developed sustainable solutions for the displaced, the internal displacement. Those efforts, guided by an inclusive approach and based on rights, are acknowledged at the global scale as example of good practices. The recent election of Colombia as the Council of Human Rights for the period of 2025 to 2027, and also the leadership as a precursor country of the Pact for Migration, are a testimony of their commitment, unbreakable commitment, also with multilateralism, with promotion of the participatory approach on benefit of the people in the move and the origin source communities, the transit communities, and the host communities. It is important. It's also important to mention that we meet in a moment when migration, as the ministry just explained, when this aspect has a very important point in the public debate and the public agendas. Migration is an inherent movement of phenomena from the humankind. It's a very complex one as well. The humanitarian crisis, natural disasters, and the economic situation has generated important historical figures in the levels of displacement. The proper management of that also generates tensions and mobilized public opinion, where debates regarding migration are polarized, and the political systems are under pressure to demonstrate that they have a strict control on the migration movement. At the same time, we know that the migration continues being an essential engine for the economies, the labor markets, the innovation, and also for the adaptation to the demographic challenges. The demand of labor are still imperative. The migrants, most of them travel for the regular roads, contribute enormously to the social and economical global development. The tension between those realities make evident the importance of areas, opportunities of discussions such as this one. We need more areas for a respectful exchange to foster trust and collaboration. We need to create spaces so we can fully understand in a better way the different perspectives from the government and many other relevant counterparts. Mainly, we need to find a common understanding ground that fosters as well efficient decisions based on principles and values. Through large inclusive consultations celebrated in the last year, Colombia has settled the foundations for this type of dialogue this week. The chosen topic, regular labor, mobility, and human rights, are the pillars of development and the well-being of these societies. Wouldn't be any more timely at this moment. It reflects completely the work of the IOM, the ones that we do on daily basis in more than 100 countries. With this support of our member states and our donors, and also many other counterparts, the organization is working on the strengthening of the governance, the migration, to facilitate the border management based on human rights, to formulate sustainable solutions to the internal displacements, and also to enlarge the pathways of migration, the safe and regular one, the fair contracting processes, and access to social protection. As in our role as coordinators of the national network of the United Nations on migration, the IOM works to take advantage of the potential of the system of the United Nations in a coordinated and efficient way, with the purpose of supporting the government on the efforts to work on the global pact for migration. Once we work, foster on networks that are inclusive, once we connect this labor mobility with adaptation to the climate change and the sustainable development, the labor or the work of the IOM shows that the regular migration and the mobility based on rights are the true pillars of the development and the well-being of our societies. We celebrate that forum that highlights the strong bond between the development and migration. This is a very important opportunity when we can work on new relationships, we generate new ideas to solve these complex challenges that are gathering is forcing our the conversation today. The local authorities, the global authorities, the national authorities, the migrants, the youth are critical for this forum, critical as well for the construction of comprehensive strategies, holistic strategies. In a moment when the commitment with international law is weakened, it is critical to ensure that the migration has a very important role in our multilateral agenda. Next year, the General Assembly of the United Nations will celebrate the second forum of the assessment of the international migration. This forum will provide a balance on the application of the Global Pact for Safe, Organized, and Regular Migration to reform also the guiding principles. The international cooperation, the respect on human rights, and the shared responsibility to achieve those goals. The Forum of the International Migration should be nurtured by the spirit in Rio Hacha, expressed by an open dialogue and in the search of efficient solutions based on the reality of the migration on the field. Chancellor, in the world, this is shown clearly. A well-managed migration can benefit all of us. The IOM expects with enthusiasm to collaborate with Colombia and all the stakeholders here so we can create the needed conditions so this goal become a reality. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mrs. Devandas. Ms. Devandas. We now welcome Ms. Nidia Tarazona, representative of the Civil Society Mechanism and a member of the General Confederation of Labor, CGT of Colombia.
Muy buenos.
Good morning to all. Resist, reclaim, realize. Fundamental rights of the migrants are human rights. STEAM representatives of the government, members of the civil society, and many other participating stakeholders, special greetings. We need to acknowledge today the ones that are not in this auditorium, the ones that represent millions of migrants and their communities around the world. We are 74 delegates from the civil society in this summit, an important amount that is still small, and still all of them are outside without being able to participate in this auditorium or also either in the roundtables. I am the only one that has a huge responsibility of represent the huge diversity of needs, priorities, and situations that are full of despair, the situations that we face. However, we cannot accept the criminalization or the exclusion of the migrants, especially when they are persecuted, detained, or separated from their families. It's just not a violation to fundamental rights, but also they can go deeper into the pain and the inequality. We need to resist those narratives and the terror policies, cruelty and dehumanization of people on the move. To migrate is not a crime. Mobility, human mobility, it is a right. And that's why we make the firm and urgent call to the humanization of the migrants, to acknowledge the right of the migration and the right not to migrate under security, dignity, freedom, and well-being conditions. We need to reclaim the value and the meaning of the general framework of human rights. We can see the forced separations of children from the parents, the deportation of people throughout the ceremonies of the naturalization, and a genocide in Gaza without any answer from the international community. We cannot accept the regression that are normalized from the policies. Long life to a free Palestinian.
Podemos aceptar el
We cannot accept the criminalization speech regarding decriminalization. The way the international governments, including the migration, forgets the crucial event that the civil society as a group of stakeholders that include the migrant communities and on the first line should be the critical central voice. We want to remind that to the forum that we cannot speak about migrants without them. The governments have different type of areas to have the intergovernmental dialogues, but this is the only space of communication regarding migration and development that are truly led by the member states that include the participation of the stakeholders. That's why all the sessions of the forum should be celebrated with a representation of the migrants and the people that represent them. We need to acknowledge our promises, the goals, and the vision of a better future for all of us. We need to be brave. We need to step ahead and to protect those in changes. What is happening with the migrants and their families and the step back of human rights all around the world cannot be normalized. And these cannot be the ones that can destroy, that can defeat the international government and powers. We are about to create legislation for all the present countries with the principles and the fundamental human rights, ensuring as well that all the migrants, without distinction, any distinction, can enjoy the access of rights such as identity, education, physical and mental health, labor conditions with dignity, social effective protection and access to justice. This forum, it is an opportunity for the governments, international bodies, the migrants and the civil society, so we can work together in the construction of migrants policies and human practices that are inclusive, that are in alignment with the international commitments on human rights adopted by the states, to resist, to reclaim, to realize. with respect and hope. I want to say that again, because that's the key message of the civil society facing the future. We need to resist the violences of the international obligations. We need to reclaim what we have lost. We need to realize that the human rights of the migrants are human rights, and the human rights are non-negotiable. To migrate should not mean to lose rights, but to use them fully. Today we wonder ourselves from which side of the history you want to be. Join us. Join the migrants. Resist, to reclaim, and to realize. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you. Thank you for your words, Ms. Tarazona. Mrs. Tarazona. Next, we welcome Mrs. Risa Francesca Regal, representative of the Youth Mechanism, one of the main mechanisms of the Global Forum on Migration and Development. Esteemed, old, beloved colleagues, participants of this forum, special greetings this morning that is so important for the global migration movement. I am from Philippines, and I have the huge honor and the big responsibility to be one of the global coordinators of the platform of migration youth that includes the stakeholders of the Global Forum on Youth and Development on Migration. Allow me to share with you a history of collaboration, leadership, and that started before the summit here in Riohacha. It all started once received the news from the Colombian presidency of the forum in Geneva. From the beginning, the Colombian authorities, they were working in a close way with our platform. This collaboration was not a random act, but reflected the commitment with the integration cross borders strategy with all the young people regarding this historical event. The initial support was quickly transformed into something deeper. The most emblematic moment arrived once we were offered something that never happened in the history on the Global Forum on Migration and Development, the opportunity to co-share a round table on the topic Children and Women on the Move, the Innovation for Tomorrow's Development. This milestone is not representing just a symbolic gesture, but also the tangible action of the critical role of young people, not just people that have lived experience, that are a truthful weight of the expert knowledge, but also active agents of change.
But this participation wasn't limited to this historical moment. During all these months, we have been present on any preparatory meeting, contributing actively to each critical part of the design of this forum. As a natural result of this collaboration, yesterday we finished our preparatory endeavors with the making of the Youth Forum on Migration, our official preparation space, inspiring. We're seeing how 23 young people coming from different parts of the world, from Colombia, going to neighboring countries like Venezuela, Ecuador, until the Caribbean, as well as United States, several European countries, and places as far away such as Fiji, got together to provide unique perspectives, completely innovative. Also, as in prior years, we have doubled up our efforts so that this forum is truly inclusive, guaranteeing also the full participation of youth with disability. We firmly believe that when we create accessible spaces for them, we are creating a fairer and more inclusive forum for everyone. In parallel to this forum, we have developed two complementary initiatives that are widening our scope and impact. On the one hand, the Leadership and Innovation Youth Award that allows us to acknowledge and celebrate those young that are transforming the migratory landscape in a positive way. Also, we have created some specific work venues with the different states. All these efforts find their expression more defined in the heart of my intervention from today, the presentation of the Declaration of La Guajira. We make a call to a migratory governance that is comprehensive, based on human rights and focused on the youth. We talk about the needs of guaranteeing the universal access to sexual and reproductive health, to services with gender perspective, to education and to employment opportunities for the young migrants. At the same time that we increase the protection measures against human trafficking, labor exploitation, gender violence as well. We talk about the importance of having educational systems that are inclusive, scholarship programs, legal documentation and access to accurate information that ease the integration and promotes also the innovation. We encourage to have a proper narrative against xenophobia and discrimination, increasing the voices and the contributions of the youth, of the migrant youth, amidst in the media and the cultural venues. We stress the importance of acknowledging the climate change as a displacement factor, and we call to the creation of safe and solid protection paths and the preservation of the local indigenous law. We consider that regional cooperation must prioritize human rights, the response capability towards crises, and the participation of all the society in the migratory frameworks. We also say that this has to be complemented and not replace the decision making in human terms, and then transparency in the use of data, accountability, and an inclusive digital education are essential to empower the children and the youth in the building of this future. Youth are not prepared to be part of this transformative part. They are not only being part of this, but we are ready to lead it as well. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias por sus palabras.
Thank you for your kind words, Mrs. Regala. We give a kind regards and we invite to the floor to Mr. Jairo Aguilar de Luque, Governor of La Guajira, who has opened the doors to this from this beautiful department to be part of this World Forum on Migration and Development. Thank you. First of all, good morning, everybody. Want to give my warmest regards to all the different delegations. This is the department of La Guajira, the only inhabited desert of our country, the most inhabited desert of the country, and with the efforts, with the struggles, a land with around 1.2 million inhabitants. We have 158,000 inhabitants, but from 1940 we have been a brave people, resilient as well, dignified, that has opened the doors to everyone. Now we are standing with that effort, with our difficulties, with our realities, but especially with our powers as well. Now today we are presenting that Guajira to the world. We are presenting more than 750 kilometers of seashore, an area that represents 33% of the participation of the Caribbean region, 18% of the coasts of this country. These are our borders. They are always open, always willing to receive. Today, we are thrilled because we want the message to leave this place, from this land. It's not only an acknowledgement, and we want to thank the national government. We want to thank the Chancellor's office that they have put an eye on La Guajira. Half of our population is an indigenous population. In this desert, they have found ways to stand, and even so, we have kept ourselves strong. These venues with the conclusions cannot stop receiving that acknowledgement to a territory that has it all. A territory that nowadays is aiming for a way to continue connecting with the world. On 1940, we welcomed the Arab people, and we talked about realities, and we started building from our tragedies the paths to move onward. Nowadays, with our hospitals, with our schools, we receive and we cater the migrant population. We thank those that are moving, the doctors, the specialists that nowadays are working in our sectors, in our clinics, in our hospitals. To all the entrepreneurs, all the businessmen that thankfully are offering through their companies labor capability to our territory that desperately needed. This is the Guajira for everyone, a hopeful Guajira, a Guajira with the high and medium Guajira, with the ancestral art that is widely acknowledged now. Is the Guajira that needs from everyone in the world to continue being visible, resistant, and strong. You are cordially welcome to this department. We want to tell you that the doors are open, that we want to continue moving onward, that there is a brave people now is telling you from the bottom of the heart, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Gracias, señor gobernador.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. We're going to give the floor to Mr. Genaro Redondo Choles, District Mayor of Riohacha, host city of this 15th World Summit of the Forum on Migration and Development. Good afternoon for everyone. I want to give my warmest regards to everyone who is joining us today in the district of Riohacha in the department of La Guajira. Welcome to this city, a Caribbean city that today transforms the core of the Global Forum on Migration and Development. We are deeply honored on being the hosts of the 15th Summit of the World Forum on Migration and Development, where we are being visited by over 40 countries, more than 63 organizations that gather together to reflect on one of the most transformative phenomena of our times, human mobility. And here I want to thank deeply to Dr. Gustavo Petro Urrego for giving this opportunity for giving this great opportunity to the district of Riohacha, to the department of La Guajira. Thank you, Mrs. Foreign Minister. Thank you, Mr. Gallon. I know that you were the responsible of making Riohacha and the department of La Guajira not only to be something visible at a regional level, but international as well. And to us, this is already a winning. So thank you so much. Thanks to this government, the government of the change, and thanks for this great opportunity that we're giving to the district of Riohacha. The Haitian anthropologist Michel Touillon, in a given moment in one of his works, affirmed that the Caribbean is the place where humanity met with the other half of humanity, and that happened in the discovery of America. Until that time, the European and Asian thought that the only race that existed were them, and in this great Caribbean they met another race, the dwellers of this land, and from that moment onward we started having this influx from European and Asian to our American lands, and nowadays we are talking about this milestone in the world history of migrations. The French anthropologist Élie Ledoux also at a given moment talk about the way that people were migrating from one place to other, and how this has brought development to many countries, but also to many nations. Given this context, we can affirm that the human being is our main identity, and something that goes beyond, and I want you to take this with you, that beyond a passport, beyond a border, or the migratory status, we all share a common condition, and that is striving for dignity, pertinence, and relevance and future. That must be our course, and I invite all the countries, all the delegations that are with us today, to remove any barriers for the migrant. They're talking about borders, passports, and others. It's just a condition, but what we should always have, and we should always persist with human being, the history of a family, the history of a person, of children that in the end are looking, striving for hope and trust, and are able to overcome social barriers that are placed in many territories. This city that was inhabited by people from the Caribbean started in the 16th century as a gathering point between traders, fishermen people, and indigenous people that came from the Caribbean, human beings coming from Africa, a native from the European area. In the world, around 123 million people have been displaced forcefully, according to UNHCR. A good amount are refugees, and 6.9 are seeking asylum. Also, 281 million people live outside their countries of origin, which talks about 3.6% of the world population. These numbers tell us that behind each number there is a story, there is a family, there is a hope. Here in the district of Riohacha, we have approximately 50,000 migrants that are striving to stay here. Out of these 50,000, approximately 6,200 children are part of our school processes. That means they are enrolled in our educational institutions and receive all these permanent strategies such as school food, transportation, additional elements. And we have 13,000 migrants that are part of our healthcare system in a subsidized regime. We have over 60 different settlements of people in Riohacha distributed in the different communal areas that are aiming to stay in this territory and that also demand goods and services. We have been working around one of the integrated centers, the most comprehensive ones that we can have in the national territory. A government strategy from 2022 that is the integrated center at the core of Riohacha that has a place for HMO, subsidized service, and they quickly can get the characterization. But it's important as well because we have an office of the National Registrar's Office. We have a healthcare point, we have education, we have entrepreneurial service, and also another one for technology. This work has been done hard with the people from the Secretariat of Planning, but also something important, the work and the effort that we do with several people helping in Riohacha, with many entities that are helping and working and striving for migration, not only in Riohacha, but also with the governor. We do that in La Guajira. There are other municipalities, like for example, there we have the mayor of Maicao, Miguel Felipe Ayagón, and the foreign minister that was talking about La Pista, that is possibly the largest human settlement that we can have in Latin America. But as it is happening in Maicao, it is happening in other municipalities where we have the mayors and the same migratory problem. But something important, here in Riohacha, estimated Foreign Affairs Minister, we are working because these people deserve that we work in terms of land sanitization. People that have been living in territories for a long time, they don't belong there, and with the national policy we can help so that these people can be the owners of their own lands, and that can be done through this land sanitization in these human settlements that are not only in the district of Riohacha but also all around La Guajira. To us, truly, this is a golden opportunity, estimated Chancellor, that now the world is focused on Riohacha in the department of La Guajira becomes an opportunity, not only given our wealth on touristic terms, but also ecotouristic. We have been followers of all the migratory flow in the last years. Riohacha is a city that grew and has been developed thanks to the migratory flow, thanks to the people that came from Italy. Here we have the first accordion that arrived from the world that entered through Riohacha, through the pier. So you had the possibility of knowing Avenue first, and you will be able to see that beautiful pier that we had at the district of Riohacha. That was the relationship that we have of this area with the Caribbean islands and the world. And this World Forum for Migration and Development allows us to recover once again those roots that with you we can continue building in order to be able to provide better securities, better conditions to our migrants. And that thanks to our strategy that we have in the district of Riohacha, we have reduced the benchmarks in terms of xenophobia. We are not treating them like Venezuelan or migrant, but just new Riohacheros that they feel at home. Here our migrants are new Riohacheros, so that they can feel at home. We share the culture, gastronomy. We share this roof that is called the district of Riohacha. And to wrap up, I just want to tell you, I want to thank for all this opportunity that has been presented to Riohacha, so that we can debate on these 3 days about what should be migration and development, not only at a local and regional standpoint, but around the world as well. Thank you so much.
Gracias, señor alcalde.
Thank you, Mayor of Riohacha. Now we're going to give the welcome to Mr. Philippe Berdeau, first council person of the Embassy of France in Colombia, who is going to represent the country that exerted previously the presidency of the World Forum on Migration and Development. The floor is yours. Good morning, everybody. Estimated Minister, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Mrs. Foreign Minister, thanks for your kind words and your testimony. Major and Governor, thank you so much for having us here in Guajira. And Mayor, thank you so much again for quoting the French anthropologists. Estimated Senator, ambassadors, directors, estimated delegates and friends of the forum. I'm going to say some words in French because, as you know, in France, we don't like to uphold a multi-language. I'm pleased on behalf of France to be here under the gracious host of the Embassy of France for this 15th Summit of the World Forum on Migration and Development. On the work that we have done in the year and a half of presidency of this forum, indeed, Colombia has received from France the presidency of this forum, proposing an ambitious and innovative program. That's why they are offering a unique framework to think about the links between migration and development. Altogether, they represent the different sectors of the social, the civil society and others, majors, academic organizations, international groups and other horizons. Altogether, we'll be able to exchange in a constructive manner all the topics proposed in our agenda by the presidency. Especially France is happy of the place that has been given to the promotion of human rights, and this essential topic will help us as a compass to tackle the 6 thematic axes presented by the presidency. We thank for the timely decisions that are presented within the spirit of the work that has been done in prior years that propose new axes for reflection. We also think about the relative challenges to women and migratory girls. As a country committed for a long time with a feminist diplomacy, France is enjoyed for the inclusion of this agenda in the topic that sometimes is neglected, considering that migrant women represent about half of the people mobilizing around the world. How women and girls can be discriminated due to the gender and migratory status. That's why they are susceptible of having discrimination and precariousness. And also they are subject to violence and human trafficking. Beyond this reality, it will be reducive to see them only from a vulnerability point of view. Both girls and women, migrants, are a wealth for our society because they are vectors of social change. Therefore, they have to be the focus of our policy given a sustainable development. I would like to quote as well an action from France in Colombia, along with the French Agency for Development and the Expertise Française Institute, that is work for women, socio-economic integration of migrant women. The program is called Women Creating Roots, Mujeres Creando Raíces. This talks about how we want to commit with France in this same topic. Can be an opportunity to talk about the different options that we have with human mobility for the development of the societies, of the hosting and transit communities, but also for people themselves. And in this spirit, our reflections must be guided towards public policy that allow us to join these forces, to multiply the options that we have coming from them. And migration poses lots of challenges, but they are an essential moment to reach the sustainable development goals of the 2030 agenda. Estimated friends, Each presidency sets a supplementary stage for the creation of a consensus and the creation of new associations. But it's not possible to change the international context that we are currently enduring. One say the forced displacement due to climate change, climate degradation, because this increases all around the world, and on the other hand, the multilateral system as we know it and as we have seen in the last years. All this has entailed many changes, and we totally condemn that we have lost certain principles that we consider that were acquired. The fight against the climate change is now a subject for criticism, despite of the scientific evidence about all these threats. Therefore, we want to reaffirm our commitment and our collective action.
We add to this a collective concern, a new one, which is the drop of the funding for sustainable development and the international associations. This drop affects many areas around the world and is forcing us to think about a new sustainable model so we can act and also ensure the migrations on regular data and also respecting the dignity of each human being. France will continue with engaging in the commitment of peace and our common good. We want to thank Colombia for opening for the dialogue and the multilateralism in a very important topic such as migration. I want to conclude saying that the days that have lived in Riohacha represent a beautiful opportunity offered to us so we can build together an answer to these international problems and struggle. Thank you so much to the host, to the people in Riohacha, for the team. I want to thank all of you. I hope we can have 3 excellent days for discussion. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Berto. In this way, we conclude the first part of the 15th Global Forum on Migration and Development. But the agenda continues this year. We want to invite to have a green spot on the bottom side of the accreditation to leave through the left exit of the auditorium next to the ramp. For the rest, please leave the auditorium on the door on the back. Also, we want to invite all the attendees so they can return back at 2 p.m. from the greetings from the President of the Republic of Colombia, Gustavo Petro Urrego, here in the same auditorium. Thank you so much for the attendance. Thank you and good afternoon to all.
of the World Forum on Migration and Development in Guajira 2025.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome to the auditorium of the Héctor Salá Zuleta Library in the city of Riohacha, La Guajira, a space where for 3 days more than 40 states, international organizations, experts, representatives of civil society, international business leaders, and young leaders will participate in the 15th Global Forum of Migration and Development Summit. Colombia, true to its commitment to promoting orderly, safe, and regular migration, hosts this global summit under the motto Regular Migration, Labor Mobility, and Human Rights as pillars of development and the well-being of societies. Since April 2024, when Colombia assumed the presidency of this global forum, it has worked under the principle of shared responsibility, promoting labor migration as a legitimate mechanism of development and recognizing migrants as full subjects of rights. A vision that seeks to reduce global inequalities and close the gaps between central and peripheral regions. This summit is a space for convergence and the construction of innovative solutions to today's challenge and the changing migratory dynamics worldwide, as well as an opportunity within the framework of sustainable development. We greet everyone following this opening session on the 15th Global Forum of Migration and Development Summit from the city of Riohacha, La Guajira, through the institutional information channels of the Presidency of the Republic, its website and social media, the Colombian public media system, and the community and grassroots communications networks amplifying it in their communities. La Guajira is one of the 32 departments that make up the territory of Colombia, the country of beauty, a desert that kisses the sea, dunes that wander, and flamingos that paint the sky. A land of wind and golden sands where the sun embraces with force and the Wayu culture waves stories in threads of color. A place where the power of life endures among cacti and infinite seas. Riohacha, the city where we met, is a tranquil port of palm trees where on its own breezy streets the salty air and radiant sunsets embrace themselves between the modernity of the Wayu Afro-descendant mestizo and Arab cultures, breathing together alongside the Rancheria River. In this city that welcomes us, to which we express our gratitude for the hosting of the 14th Global Forum on Migration and Development Summit, we invite you to watch the promotional video of this important event. ¿No lo podemos ver?
Bienvenidos.
Welcome to Riohacha, La Guajira, a city that historically is committed with the migrants. This year, La Guajira welcomed from 2nd to the 4th of September the 15th Global Forum on Migration and Development Summit. Through 3 days, the world will meet to build together solutions on favor and organize safe and regular migration. 21 parallel events, 5 magistral panels, round tables, and hundreds of participants will provide the life to this element under the motto mobility for the well-being and the well-being of the societies. We welcome you in Riohacha, La Guajira, where the global dialogue will meet with the quality, warm people of our people. With dignity, this is the government of Colombia.
Señoras y señores,
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the Republic of Colombia, Mr. Gustavo Petro Urrego. Special greetings to all the participants of the delegations on the 15th Summit of the Global Forum on Migration and Development. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Rosa Yolanda Villavicencio Martínez. She was a political refugee seeker. I wanted to put it as a chancellor among many other reasons, precisely because of that reason, because the world right now is going through a problem for some, the migration, but for others, the salvation of life, for others, the construction of a new humankind, which is positive instead of negative. Rosa Yolanda was a deputy of PSOE in Madrid, if I'm not mistaken. See? Right? So this is a successful case. It is part of the identity of Colombia as well, that due to our historical reasons, we understand almost all the cultures around the world. I will talk about that in a minute. Chief of Staff, José Raúl Ramera, philosopher, acting representative of the General Director for Partnerships, Communications and Advocacy of the IOM, Catalina de Bandas Aguilar. Where are you? Do I know you? Catalina, how are you? Very long title. It takes almost the whole page. Director of the Administrative Unit, Special Migración Colombia, Gloria Esperanza Herrero. I'll call her Chiita. Governor of the Department of La Guajira, Jaire Alfonso de Luque, and his wife, Sara. They were around. There is. Thank you. You are the hostess here. I changed the place of this forum to here in Riohacha because it is one of my goals is to show the beauty of Colombia in the whole sense. This is the country of the beauty. And this is one of the most beautiful places and the most strange areas in the country. Almost no green is seen, but just the sandy beaches, the dunes, such as in the Sahara, and a very beautiful sea, a very salty one. Migrations, because Colombia is the fourth country that attracts, like a magnet, animal species, the nomad ones, and one of those is flamingo. That enriches with beauty now and then certain coastlines, and that's one of the problems with the wind energy, because La Guajira is the second point in the world after El Chad, that the continental area has fast winds and permanent winds. So that makes it the best place from Santa Marta, even up the way, all the way to Barranquilla, on clean energies from the wind. So the birds are on the way. Mayor of the municipality of Riohacha, Mr. Choles, and his wife Claudia, she's also here. Directors, male and female, Congress of the Republic, and mayors of the municipalities, media, all here with us today. I should explain a little bit why my tardiness, because it overlapped in our attempt of going back to Colombia, transforming Colombia into a vital center in the world. I traveled to Japan, that is very long, besides the problem that I'm having because I'm old. My body, the time of my body. After traveling so much, the middle ear is filling up, and the middle ear is critical for concentration and the balance. So if I come here, stumbling around in this speech, they will say, another things on the press is here with us, trying to destroy me. So that's why I'd rather rest a bit. And besides that, it's a lot of work in Bogota. So I was late. And now we are going to Barranquilla and then Japan. We had a fair over there. It's very important, and turns out that the Colombia stand made in our way, in our government, showing the beauty of Colombia, the natural beauty, and the literature is the most famous on the fair, so I should definitely go. The Japanese. All right. To talk about migrations, then we need to talk about ourselves from the beginning. And why, even at the Latin American and the Caribbean scale, we need to have a different position, stand in the world versus the dominant current from the migration policy dominated by the United States and the Europeans. I think that is destroys the human rights, thinking as the human rights from our human condition. It's very odd from many countries that are just tired of explaining that their democracies are actually a democracy because they look more like a Hitler. And that's why I really wanted to talk in depth about that, because the Caribbean, where we are at this moment, with all the diversity, is the witness of strong global migrations, especially for the last 5 centuries. Coming from, because of the fact that at the end of the day, makes the Europeans to believe that they were discovered. He was here for a while already. He was accused by the Mayas. And most likely the Mayas went to the big rivers on the Caribbean located in Colombia. The Magdalena River, the Cauca River, the Sinu River, that they go to the heart of the current Colombia. Even it is easy to reach the highlands with a little bit of physical effort, 2-3 days walking. So Colombia was populated through those rivers that were like the veins, the vital veins, and our own ancestors from the indigenous communities, they do have a very clear diversity that we are just discovering. In La Sierra Nevada, around here, we have very advanced cultures that discovered the white cotton. And that is the big contribution to the humankind, because Europe was saved for thousands of deaths during the pest and the Middle Age. Once the Europeans, and male and female, started to dress with cotton. Cotton is washable all days. And they were, because of they were washing the clothes all days, they were able to kill all the viruses that were destroying Europe. Because at the moment, Europe did not have anything to dress but just the wool that is not washable. And that's why the English fabric is not washable. You need to send it to the special machines to be clean. So cotton saved Europe, but it's not saving us from a migrant, as successful ones such as the tomato and potatoes and tobacco. Now for tobacco, there are certain things that are called like an addiction, but replace another addictions that we have, so-called ones, because it was the cultural balance of the men that go to war. And they needed to balance their browns, and that was the wine. Although Romans, where we are coming from, they always said that the civilization will go as far as the wine will go, and they totally forgot about the whiskey and beer that they call like a brute thing. In Colombia, we drink wine, whiskey, beer, among many other delicious liquors that we produce in El Cauca that we call chirrinchi. Now the topic is that that Caribbean, perhaps as the Mediterranean, but even more, became the heart of the world. And I believe that it is the heart of the world. Indigenous from here, from La Sierra, said that that point, the highest point in the Caribbean with snow peaks, a place in the Caribbean with snow peaks, permanent snows, that is being destroyed due to the climate crisis. For the indigenous, that is a sacred place that is called the heart of the world. As the fourth country in the universe, all the animal species, well, that is true now. But not just the animal species, but also the human species. And by a huge amount of people, and that's why we are here. We need to acknowledge ourselves as such if we want to exist happily. Here in this place, in La Sierra, in a place, the city that is called Santa Marta to the south, the indigenous fought for a century with the Spaniards, the invaders. That history was erased from the Colombian education that was from Franco, separating children, women from men, and keeping them by force separated. And then they forgot our history, which is a history of constant, permanent struggle and rebellion. We never kneel, truly. And we saw that here in the south, when the indigenous resisted the Spaniards. The Spaniards coming from Spain, they were Castellanos, but some higher commanders and the captains, because the rest were the people that conquest by force in the south and the middle of Spain, almost the whole Spain, the Arabs from the Cordoba Califato. And most of the first conquerors were seamen, marines, almost as slaves went through the seas to reach the Caribbean. And they were not treated as slaves, because they were not slaves, but as servants. And they were the Arabs. They recovered freedom because they were treated in the same way, the vassals that were treated the same way, the Negroes, the African descendants, and we do have that here because the Castellanos were descendants from Romans, the Arabs, blacks, indigenous, and that's when the blood started to mix, and also the cultures.
And in the cultures, there was an encounter and not a domination, something that is really important in the analysis, because in the end, the culture is the true development of the human being, not the technology, technically speaking, but that sometimes it's just an expression of the culture. And sometimes it's just fiction. They started bamboozling the indigenous with mirrors because we didn't have mirrors. And in exchange, they got the land, as a popular saying says. And the land was a lot more expensive and more worthy than the mirrors. And the largest Latin American inequality started. That is the most unequal area of the world. In Colombia, the most unequal area of the place. So you know how we are located in terms of inequality. Is something even worse than the castes of India, even worse than the social status of the people. Is the mother of the inequality because it anchored in the Spanish Castilian feudalism and even involved in the place towards something called slavery. Here we had the slaves coming from Africa, Havana, Veracruz, Mexico, Cartagena, Colombia, the Caribbean, the great route of the slaves. But this, and pardon my knowledge of history, was enriched with diversity because the human being doesn't want to be a slave, and there are no many slaves that bow their heads admitting slavery, even though we have some. And in Colombia, in the armed fight against slavery in the middle of the 19th century, in the slavist armies, there were black slaves that were attacking the liberators because they were told that if they were free men, they would starve to death. And unlike at the master's place, they will always have food. Something similar happens in Colombia and Latin America. The Latin, Roman, Arab, indigenous and black mixture at the beginning, I think that it was awesome. I'm proud of it. It's just to go to Alhambra and we find Latin America and other parts of the world, and we find ourselves. I can be dancing in Africa and in Turkey, and that means that we are in Latin America in general. We have reached an understanding capability of the humanity that we cannot lose because that is our true wealth. Then we had other migrations like birds. And then ideas came by from other parts of the world that came in the hands of the Arabs. In the ships that came clandestinely in languages that we didn't know, but that we translated with the language, with the dictionary, with the candlelight, with the French, the Dutch, and other languages. The beauty of the Wayuu culture is a mixture of indigenous with Dutch pirates, because the Caribbean also became some kind of resistance. And before the Spanish monopoly of the commerce of the trade, some Arab and Caribbean people decided to break the monopoly and the ban on the trade, and they founded what the Spaniards called piracy, that is nothing else but freedom in the trade. And they crossed their blood and their culture. So what we have in Guajira, Aruba and Bonaire, and going to the north, going to Haiti, when it took 7 hours arriving on a ship, became the cross of the rebel. Of the French ideas for France came through the black people from Haiti, who liberated in the largest revolution in the history, even larger than the French Revolution, and they defeated the Napoleon army that came en masse, most powerful of the government, 200,000 soldiers that were defeated in Haiti. And the red and blue flag that is similar to this one, whose story was hidden in the education of our children, because the blue and the red stripes are not the blue eyes of the Tsar from St. Petersburg that fall in love with Miranda, or vice versa, but instead is the flag of Haiti, free, that at the same time had a white stripe from France. It's just that they found out that the white people from France didn't want equality, freedom, or fraternity with the people from Haiti that they had enslaved. And it came to such a point that the black people from Haiti became the libertarian Kindle of the world. They were using this flag like the LGBTQ in every home, like the ones from Haiti. And the vengeance was terrible because they wanted not the slavery again of the black Haitians, but an indemnification because the slaves from the French were considered in France private property. And they had to indemnify from a seizure. And this also happened in Bogota, because this conservative slavist, backed by the Catholic Church and some black slaves in the armies, wanted on exchange of the freedom, something that was neglected by Bolivar. They wanted an indemnification for being private property, and they received so. Now we understand why they behave like that and why there is so much social inequality in Colombia. Because even in their psyche, in an elite mindset as the white Castilian, they still believe that the rest of the Colombian are given our tanned skin. From the cross of all the races in the world, we are still slaves. And that's why we are killed. That's why we are destroyed, dismembered in mass graves. That's why this government has been so ill-advised for them, because that changed that for a democracy. Well, I delved too much into the history, but I wanted to tell you about our diverse upbringing. You can find a Viking here, and she will find a history, and she can do that. Or you can find an ascendant from the Russian aristocracy, pretty beloved by the left wing. Or you can find all the mixes from all the cultures of humanity, because 132 cultures there are. Culture, they call it genetic blood in the veins of any Colombian person. And we believe that it was a sin. Turns out that is our biggest wealth. Therefore, the Sheikh of Dubai told us we didn't understand. If we had brought fabrics to Mars, I didn't know that was possible. They are bringing a group of museums and not museums, and the genetics of the work that we do, talking that that world is going to be end and it's ending. They look through AI with deceits, like with mirrors, on a special place like this. Genetics that can create different cultures of the world around the genes that are in the blood of the genetic studies, and that has to deal with the human diversity that was part of our history, Roman legionnaires that still live among us, as well as millennial people who fight with others, and I think that they are uniting with others. The blend of the human diversity and others create this world that we are creating. So how do we see migration now? We cannot see that as Trump, that he, being a migrant, considers that bad if it's not coming from the Aryan world, an Aryan world that comes from India. That's why the ancient Vedas had as a symbol not a cross, as they said in Arenilla, Antioquia, very white and Christian, but they have a swastika, and they believe that's a Christian cross. So much so came the political conservatory degradation in monasteries in Antioquia. We just have to acknowledge realities of why we behave like that and try to overcome the negative things that we have had. But the swastika is not a Christian cross, it's an ancient Aryan symbol, white. But from the original people where the Aryan came from, that is the northern part of India, with a specific religion, the Vedas. That's where swastika comes, and Hitler set it as his symbol because its source is what he believed it was the Aryan supremacy that once again is being placed as the leader, I believe, in the Aryan people from Europe, and hence our current issue. There are no races. Races don't exist. The races that we see in the dogs, the breeds, were genetic manipulations of animals, not nature. It's something wrong. There are no true blood bulls. The humans were manipulating their bulls to transform them, not nature. Otherwise, the test is easy. You can have a full breed bull and put it with the Caribbean, and you will notice what happens with the fighting bulls. The same with a dog and a cat. Cats suffer the most. But let's not get into a fight when the cats start fighting, otherwise you might die. And some casualties go by. But this issue about races don't exist. And ideology created on the basis of race is an ideological stupid falsehood. There are hymns in Colombia that talk about race, and one is the Antioqueño, that I hope the Antioqueño youth can change this. Because the race doesn't exist. We have a representative of the Chamber of Medellin, Antioquia, that is really rebel against the group. That's why they don't like her. But we like her a lot, nevertheless. You got blushed. Oh, she sings really well. She leads a cultural movement, a popular youth cultural movement from Antioquia that is not Maluma or Karol G, with due respect, because they are part of Miami, Medellinian culture that is only trafficked by RCN and Caracol. Well, they cash in on that. But uniting Miami with Medellin is dangerous. And now we know why. So the concert, instead of culture, becomes money laundering. Things that happen in the current life. While in the popular neighborhoods of Medellin, there is a culture that is not seen on the radio. And I wanted to introduce here because through art, they can express the reality of the human people in their diversity in the world. And this culture must appear and be empowered and leveraged by us. Well, if we see mere migration on a positive figure, if we are able to understand the world thanks to this history, and if we can dance and if we can talk despite the difference in languages, and we can live in other different cultures, thanks to the fact that we understand the human diversity, why are we going to lean on looking for a policy that kills the human diversity? And I have seen that our political surveillism has increased so much, scared by the military technology and the submittal that we have by the serfdom to bend our head on our knees before completely ascientific, pre-modern and fascist technologies. And I have to go back to the history to tell you why Latin America has to be anti-fascist. Because we are sons of and daughters of Bolivar. Because this was not only a Spanish monopoly in terms of conquest, they almost killed all the Caribbean indigenous people. The largest one is here, the Wayuu people, and it's beautiful. An expression of the ancient Caribbean world, groups that come from Mayan, we don't know exactly. And these people, despite their indigenous rebelry, they stopped being rebels. They never stopped being rebels. Because the black, before arriving to Cartagena, when they saw the first island of the Caribbean at the east, what we call the Lesser Antilles, they just saw the first land in the American continent, But being islands, they wanted to die or they wanted to be free, dying drowned or being free men and women. They just had the opportunity. And obviously I saw many people drowned as the African migrants die when they cross the Mediterranean. The largest mass grave is not in Caribbean or in the Gulf of Mexico, not even the Colombian land, despite the fact that many of us have been killed from April the 9th of 48. 700,000 Colombians have killed each other due to political affiliations or for vendetta that come from the Roman legionnaire due to a silly war that is the war against drugs, the war on drugs. Due to a religious thought essential that doesn't have to deal with Latin American. So they thought that coffee was sin. There are several religions that are coming from this area, but maybe they have another good coffee, not as good as ours, but there you go. They forbid alcohol here as well, as the Yankees in Chicago, and they have some mobsters that said that only legalizing the alcohol they could finish with that, but they don't do that with us now. They forbid alcohol, which was wine also and beer, and then they forbid marijuana, and now Wall Street reeks of marijuana all around the world because they don't even know how to smoke that, and they smoke it on the street in front of children, for God's sake. Well, we have learned as people that not even cigarettes are smoked on the street. There are not many. We don't find people that smoke, fortunately. But this scientific moralism, after over 300 Colombians died, and in this land, because the old smugglers that were helping the Dutch pirate knew the clandestine routes of the Caribbean Sea to reach United States, so they took advantage to use the marijuana that was taken in the areas, and they were killed because it was so high the price that the greed was above the heart of the Caribbean people.
They kill each other between monk plants until they got up to 300,000 deaths, especially in a very important place because it was not used in Colombia, but in Peru and Colombia, but due to we have at this point 700,000 killed people, but not because we are consumers, but because in North America and in Europe we have consumption. It's not legalized. The hearts are filled of this feeling, and we kill each other because of greedy. It's not the discussion, it's not the topic, but we need to talk about that. Now, the people that escaped the ships, taking into reality the consign that there's freedom in exchange of death. The flag was not the Haitian one. They changed blue by black. Freedom or death. Rouge ou noir. French, but not the French of the French Revolution, but from the freedom that started in 1948. Very Latin ones that arrived to our land. Black rather drowned or strove for the freedom. The ones that achieved the freedom in the Caribbean did not see a place that was for forced labor, I said, because generations and perpetuity, your children, your grandchildren will be slaves. Who wants to have that such a future? And that's why they're rather drawn before anything. And the ones that survived arrived to the Grenadines and Saint Vincent Island, that is a country today. And they resist 60 years because they allied with the indigenous people to the British, 60 years, almost as old in Santa Marta. And they achieved a pact once the British diplomacy, in a very smart move, were seduced to sign in exchange of talking English, and instead of going to firm land, inshore, in exchange of that, they will be freed. And they complied with it, but the inland was to die because this was on Spanish territory in Nicaragua, the coastline, with many other islands in the Caribbean, even also in the Spanish territory, including San Andres y Providencia, which is our beautiful island in the Caribbean. And we speak English in Colombia then, a Creole English, that it was born from the free black people, not the slaves ones. And to have a heritage of freedom is fundamental. That's why the first territories of America, from Alaska to the Patagonia, are here in these lands. The Palenques from Santa Marta, Palenques from San Basilio, near Cartagena, Palenque from El Darién, that I want to visit. The army has said that not even the army can go there. Well, they need to go with the president, because our history is our history. The first areas, free areas in that area. But that's where Bolivar were coming from, because the first free republic, the black one, the Haitian one, embraced them despite the fact that they were slaves of tanned skin and black skin. One was coming from the French army, and one were coming from, I forgot the name, from St. Petersburg, Catalina, men of the world, cosmopolitan. And of course, should be that way, because if we have all the bloods in our veins, when one of our conditions in our agenda is that we do not like to live among the mountains still, but we like to see what is to the other side of the sea, to know it. And that is the Caribbean. That's why Bolivar, from the Caribbean, from the current Venezuela, Miranda, a Caribbean man, they went to the sea once they were defeated, trying to find freedom. And the refugee was called Haiti, then Jamaica. And General Petion, a black man, commanding the Haitian Revolution, gave away the men, the chips and the flag. And we just added the son of the Caribbean and the son of the mountains. It does not mean gold, but sun. And then put together with the freedom, the sun with the freedom. And that's why the Bolivar Revolution, it is a revolution of freedom. Sons and daughters of Bolivar, we are sons of freedom, daughters of freedom. The Republic of Colombia, as almost all the republics in Latin America, the republics are republics founded on the principle of freedom. Bolivar freed 5 of the current republics. There should have been one, a single one, and that's one of the first mistakes, because we were splitted. So divided. So the human diversity here joins with the concept of freedom, that is almost an absolute freedom. It shows now, because we have a yin and yang, and the Hegel dialect explains that everything has a contrary, and otherwise the river cannot flow without contradiction, and history is a river. That shows that we will have the counterpart always, the contrary. They just have daughters, but also the mindset. And the Caribbean and Colombia, they have been a balance on the edge of the knife between the freedom and the slavery. What about how amount of dictatorships that we have had so far? Even Bolivar killed his own opposition, including the hero of our land, José Prudencio Padilla, that was in the Trafalgar battle next to the Spaniards. And he was imprisoned on the British jails. But he learned so much about the sea. He was very well known. Nelson, then he learned from him. Nelson, I forgot the name of his master, but he came here with a canoe from Rio Hacha. Bolivar found him, a guy from the Caribbean, and he loved to roam around here. He saw with so much happiness making this canoe, and so he asked him to lead the Colombian fleet of the freedom under the flag of the freedom, and he accepted. And he fought on the most important battle of the independence in the Lago Maracaibo, the Maracaibo Lake, because the whole Spanish fleet, the second reconquest with the dozen of men and the triumph in La Batalla Boyacá would be anything if they were able to touch the inshore land. And El Negro, José Prudencia, the son of a Wayu woman and the son of a freed black man, with this ingenuity that was just coming from the Vikingos, and the Vikings, and also bringing all the ships, taking them on the shoulder of men and putting right in front of the sea. And that's the way he was able to defeat the Spaniard fleet, and this was completely defeated, and then they were completely freed as a country until a silly president then decided to kneel. So we're facing a global problem, knowing that that's our urgency. Same in Chile, same in Argentina, with slight differences. Some Italian type of indigenous people, but the anarchists from Italy. Same with Uruguay and Brazil, with certain differences. Same in Central America, same with Mexico. Receive the heritage of the huge Mexican empires that has an older civilization older than Spain, which is almost half of the United States, because those lands were from Mexico, Texas, California, etc. And we have a general of the Mexican army that never accepted to leave Texas, and he was called as the rebel, subversive person, and disappeared because he was moving as a ghost. They couldn't capture him until he appeared back again in 1985 in a different revolution led by Colombians. In Bocas del Toro, northern Panama, the border with Costa Rica, and that's where we have hundreds of people buried in a common tomb from Cuba, Nicaragua, Maceo, trying to free themselves from Spain. Mexico, this general from Mexico was the military commander of that at that point, and the Colombians, the Liberians ones, from Rafael Uribe, the general, a person from Antioquia that loved the freedom, even a lover of socialism, that was hidden. He was killed in the Congress of Colombia just because he was the only liberal in the middle of a conservative Congress, and he wanted to talk about public education. This was not allowed just until under the leadership of the nuns, the priests, and these upside down crucifix, because Jesus wouldn't be ever a slaver. So that's the current history. Of course, we have in Mexico and Latin America, of course, we have cities. In Spanish, we do have a strength of the Spanish language inside of the United States. Of course, Latin Americans, they understand indigenous people of the Northern America, and they can dance, and we have many problems, even violent problems of jealousy on the discos, the Afro discotheques of New York, Washington, or Miami. Of course, their music can be enjoyable. So the Caribbean music hits strong in New York, and we have this boom of salsa. Even the whiteys try to dance, but they cannot even do it. Not so much. And many other ways where we have found that we can have a dialogue. But a dialogue between the people of the south of the Bravo River and the people on the north part of it. Because America is the Americas, but also the America. Pepe Mujica proposed to me that since they were talking about that North America is just America, and that's the way it's called in Europe, then we need to change the names. And South America should be called the Amazonian. Because almost all the rivers of the South America that provide the highest amount of water in the world, all of those rivers are born, exist due to the existence of the Amazonian jungle, the Amazonian. That makes South America, perhaps also with Africa, the two places in the planet where we have the highest generation of the clean energies. And I believe that we all know that the only possibility for the human existence to have it permanently on the planet Earth is to leave the fossil energies towards a clean energy. And that possibility is here. And Trump's government deny it because they want to drill and drill, meaning to get or go faster into the end of humankind, even in a conductant way, even more than the bombs that they throw in Gaza. Showing that this mentality, the mindset that is different, because Europe accepts that. Even I have thought about the situation that happens between Germans, because I have spoken about with Charles, the social Democrats from Germany. I saw him when he was young, throwing cocktails and stones in the socialist Germany in his youth. The German president, the current one, was here in his youth. He lived with corgis, and he returned some face masks that he had saved. And I have requested to him, and I think he needs to return the statues, 150 statues from the San Agustin culture that we don't know where this culture is coming from, because of the beauty and the style that is almost civilized from this culture, that it has nothing to invite, so to speak, very similar to what it has found in Malta 10,000 years before. For then the history makers are mistaken because it's coming from before. Those are not the first writing, the first sculptures. Here at the core of Amazonas in Chiureteque, and also place in Brazil, in those places we have pictures that are dated in 3,000 and 5,000 years before Christ. And artists that were there without any jungle, and they were here painting and living generation after generation the artistic heritage. So we have been artists and we are still artists. But we are here before Trump, before the Castilians, before the Roman legions that created the Latin. We are here before the beginning of the humanity. What do they want to leave from some place of Latin America? The ones that arrived here 300, 200 years ago, they want to force us to live as they do with the Palestinians from our own earth, land, because nobody will keeping them to go to Alaska or to Patagonia. That's why we are in touch with the trades. Maybe they were coming from Asia. We don't know exactly where from. But the first human beings painted the 16th chapel, the largest one in the world at the core of the Amazonas, a place that I want you to know that was introduced to the world because this is a magic world between guacamayas, yellow butterfly, all colors, and dozens of thousands of vegetable species, even cultures of the not discovered by humans just yet, that shows the art to the world. The 16th chapel of the Amazonas. Who is keeping us from going to anywhere in Latin America? What's the theory or the scientific foundation behind it? Because our skin is not theirs. Who is keeping us from going to Europe? Maybe the Roman legions through all the generations remaining in Italy, which is not the same as Rome. And in the Hispania, as Spain was called, the Castilian one. Then they learned to speak Spanish thanks to the late Latin. Those are in our veins, and they came here before Trump, before any Polish running away from the Auschwitz fields, and we welcome them open arms because regardless of the religious differences, we are humans and we know what is a person that has been persecuted, a women and men that has been persecuted, and we never told them no. And to the Spaniards from the Republican era, never ever we told them no. To the Catalans, anarchists, we never told them no. A non-Italian fleeing from the fascism, from hunger, and the poor Italy falling after the Renaissance, they were never told no, up to the point that the military boss and the political boss that led the Italian Republic, Garibaldi with the red jacket and many of their guys, they arrived to the beaches in Uruguay and Buenos Aires and Brazil and disappeared because Garibaldi was an anarchist and he did not want power. He fled from power. God bless, God forbid, because his spirit filled of freedom was still here in Latin America.
So why they have to tell us, no, you can't enter Europe? Why the German says no if they took 150 millennial statuettes of the Colombia? Why do Spaniards have to say no, that a fool president in love of a queen thinking that we can get them head over heels with gold? I don't know if it can be bad. They can buy a treasure whose goldsmanship comes from the year 3000 before Christ. That means that here we produce the most sophisticated gold craftsmanship than the embellishment of the pharaohs in Egypt in the same time. And they took the gold, and now the Spaniards don't give that back, knowing that it's ours. Well, things of the current life. Where comes the legitimacy to say no if inside we are the grandson of Europeans on one side? That's why we can talk about their philosophy and their art and be better than that. That's why revolutions were not killed in Europe against under the yoke of the kings and Hitler, and we do that every day. That's why the intellectual beacon came from Paris and was located in Bogota, in Buenos Aires and Mexico. And that's why we are still young and we can change the world, because it's just to unite the human diversity with culture and with clean energies and with nature and water and winds and seas. And we can save the world, if I may, with the pardon of our friends from Europe here, but we have to strike a balance. The new alliance in the world, I don't think that is the one presented by China. that mentally has a clear mindset, but the partners are the ones from oil, Russian, Arabs, from the center of Asia, and oil is not going to save the world. That is the doom of China if they decide that path. And what not to say about the United States? It can be United States that in that case not even being aware. They decided to go through the oil path so that we have to forge a freedom between Africa and Latin America, the South America. And only if Europe dares, because they became coward, lots of wealth kept at home, that removes freedom. And or with China, that at least has a discourse, they can forge an alliance and the freedom army of the world. And we would have another more beautiful world and more plural. We still are not forging that alliance, and I think that CELAC that is meeting with Europe and the CELAC that got together in China, we need to propose these as the Latin American banner, because it's the perspective that we can have in the future between Africa and South America. We can cleanse completely the energy matrix of Europe and United States, and even China if they so want it. 1.4 gigawatts of energy, potentially clean energy, that can be created in South America, and 1.2 gigawatts are used with the price of coal and carbon. Only the greed of them hinders us from doing so, and they want to continue with coal and oil, where we can change, because they will be the save of the world, to save the world, because that will be half of the missions, to keep one step beyond, and that's what this generation has to do. And it's just forging an alliance between United States and South America. That means an American alliance, but as the Trump age, they just want to take the Latin America out from the land. That we were before the English there. There are other parts of the world that can create that alliance. And that alliance is not only technological of lore and knowledge, but instead is a cultural alliance that has to uphold diversity. Also, the anti-migratory thesis of Europe is just fascism. They don't like Arabs, but the Arabs were the ones that handed them numbers and the good life and love and poetry, because we learn from them. That's why we have a really bad reputation in the world. Passion comes from Romans, but also from Arabs, and they are both in Europe, and they were the ones that were funding the European art in general. He's not going to say that an opera is beautiful, at least we understand it. We seldom hear that here in Latin America, but they have to understand from cumbia. I dream for the new Pope to allow a great fandango from cumbiamberas at St. Peter's Square as an act for indemnification and asking for forgiveness for a church that allowed slavery. Estimated friends, so that you can keep that idea in your head. It can be the beginning of a world revolution. We don't know yet. Even though revolutions start differently, with naked women in a horse, riding a horse and with flags. But well, let's leave those ideas floating around. So, it's fascism, anti-migratory laws in the United States and Europe. And I think that Latin America must speak up about that. And I see many, even progressive presidents, bending their knee towards those issues. That's why I dared, because I didn't know. I woke up a morning for a given reason. I thought about that, maybe for other reasons. But I woke up with the heat in the beaches of Coveñas at the Caribbean Sea. And I went to see next to the sea Twitter. It was still Twitter by that time. And there is a message from someone from my government saying they already left Alexandria, but not Egypt, close to Washington, to planes with Colombian people. They are coming because they were taken back. They didn't have documents. And what I answered by that time is, receive them with flowers and banners because they are human beings and they are Colombian people. That's what I said. But I kept moving Twitter back and forth to see if there was a plane coming from Brasilia, a plane that arrived earlier. But what I saw there was the Brazilian people stripped with shackles like this and chains. How come that a migrant is a delinquent? These leavists didn't treat the people that they brought from the Black Africa with aid of the Arabs. What's the difference? Some came on a ship and some others came on a plane. So I said, well, I asked the very same officer from migration, do they come chained as well? So he said, finally being boldly clear, because a lot of people deceived me in my government, they said, yes, they come in chains. To me, that was something completely reprehensible. That how come that a Colombian accepts that a non-delinquent, the majority are not, because they go to work. And I even remembered of the economy class lectures that I had in the first semester of the Union Economy that need never get back in the economy faculties in the country, because part of the scientific principle that the wealth comes from work. And what they are doing is that they are taking the richness, the wealth from the country, because they are taking the work. And in this manner, they are killing the United States as a political principle. So I thought inconceivable and totally irrational, but that at these times of the 21st century they bring human beings innocent in a plane. And I ordered the Colombian Air Force. They won't enter to Colombian airspace. They will go back to the United States. And all hell came loose. They said, Colombians are going to be angry at you because they are going to take longer. How come they were thankful? They knew and they understood that he is humiliating. And the sons and daughters of Bolivar will not bend their knees. It costed men and women very intelligent, smart, shot in all these cities, as we are doing. And how come that we don't understand what it means, liberty or freedom or death? What we cannot show is the flag of Bolivar. Highly European, I believe, because it's not this one. That comes from the history of America, of Latin America. This European banner, the history was lost because it's forbidden in Colombia. It was just seized in the last demonstration that we have in Bucaramanga, and I present it like this in a great place so that they don't remove that from us. That is a highly Cartesian charter where the colors are red, which means freedom, white, that means peace, and black, that means death. and it's from 100 centuries ago, and there was not anarchism that has its banner, but came to Latin America, and it's used even by the drug dealers on the border with Venezuela. This is from Bolivar, and it was raised in the battles, and comes from Bolivar's army, and doesn't appear even in the battalions that were like the ones coming from Bolivar, completely banned and censored, only because they have the black that means or death. It's not a homage to death, but to the human decision of never being slaves, nor allowing slavery in any part of the world, but either Bogota or Gaza. And that's why we have Colombian in the ships in the seas of the world. And we help them. I hope that an Israeli drone, attacks me at the palace and ends my life, because that will be part of the consequences of defending an idea that could be massacred. So I request the people from Europe, white and any colors, because now Europe is like ours, and it's going to be like us. There is no force in the world that can hinder what we do. We have to rescue the Aryan culture and keep them alive, because they are part of the culture. But they kindly ask the people from Europe to finish anti-migratory laws, because Europe is going to lose their lives and the highest richness that can be understood differently, that hasn't been able to do that, and that comes from wars and conquest and serfdom. And we have to understand the spirits of the day that also were born, yin and yang, always together. Because here is where revolution comes. Revolution comes from Latin America. So it's a contradiction that the people that fought against Hitler, the grandparents of the current voters, went to the mountain like us. 200,000 Italians versus Mussolini, and it wasn't the North American army the one that defeated Mussolini. It was the people in arms under the Garibaldi patrol that was talking about the working socialism. 42,000 out of them died in the mountains, and they were the first ones that took the places, Firenze, like the cradle of Renaissance, or Rome, and only the lions with the North American group with the Sicilian army allowed to end that revolution when they came through Sicily to the north, and they removed the weapons not to Hitler but to the Italian people that were using the banners. And the same happened in Greece, and in the end the same happened in Spain, and it happened in France. The first ones that entered under the Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower were the anarchist brigade, I forgot the name, of the Spanish Republic. They were the first that entered to the parade that was released, but didn't know that the metal of the Eiffel Tower was bought with the indemnification that Haiti paid to France for the freedom of the slaves. Look at that paradox. And that has Haiti now in one of the biggest issues in the moment, and we are tending their hands because we cannot forget our commitment with freedom. And in these places of Europe, they have to work out, because they have to go back to the mountains of the mind to remove the fashion from their land. and the fascism talks again about superior races, Aryan races, and sends to the places the others that are different. And that came from the Mediterranean, where we had the word democracy, had the largest mass grave that we have in humanity nowadays. And we don't want that Europe because that is going to be our enemy. But instead we want a Europe that knows how to understand the difference and their own internal difference and the value of clean energy and the value of the cultures of the people of the world, and removing all the fascist recommendation of anti-migratory recommendations that even the social democrats and socialists are welcoming, changing the red banner by a black one, as it eventually happened. And we propose to strike an alliance for the global democracy, for the human dignity, for freedom, and a new technology that will come in an economic world based on new human relationships, and therefore in other types of energies that we have and that we can find in other parts of the world. To the American people that I know, because I was exiled there and I have tried to understand them, Aryan, white, coming from English and Swedish and Irish, I see some people that were raised knowing what democracy is. They are radical Democrats, knowing that they believe in the democracy of their own community, communitarism. Something similar to us, but we don't understand each other well, because our viceroy is the one that helped to fight the Colombian people against the American, and the English and Irish were the ones that had us fighting against the viceroys from Spain. We have the geopolitical different story.
But I know of the democratic spirit of North America as a young, the worker one, agrarian worker, and urban worker. And I know that is conquest, but TV and gains weight. It does not even fit through the doors. It cannot fight the war in the way they must do it through a computer, and they do so. But that spirit of North American people is the one that we need to revive, so it is understood that America does not belong to them. It's not their land. There was conquest as well from ourselves, from our indigenous, but it's also a plural one. It's beautiful. It is a freedom. It's a land of freedom. That's the way they saw it. That's the way we see it. It is a land of freedom. For any European, it was the rest, because they were living among the land, the feudalism, and they were dying, starving to death from the fertile land of others. And they were able to see that these would be actually their land, but they kept the land. The land that belongs to the earth, to the planet, and belongs to the humankind as a collective. And that more or less is understood here. So a different world is possible. And we need to be just brave to talk about it. And that courage should come from the people of Latin America. In my opinion, is coming from the Africa president from Africa got nervous once he saw me debating against Macron, and he did not reach that point, and then he bowed his head. He shouldn't have done that, because they are the big leaders of Africa. Should be stronger. Lula, Claudia, the president, knowing that her country depends economically from the States. We need to raise our hands, the heads of the Incas, the Mayas, the Aztecas, and many other people, and the new people, because we cannot admit to Trump to say that the migrants are criminals, to build jails that are concentration fields. But it's just the repetition of Hitler. And I'm telling here to Trump, separate yourself from Hitler. Your grandparents, yours and many other grandparents from the whole North American people. I went to the cemeteries, the fields in Europe walking. Thousands there, Jews, black, whites, indigenous most likely. Thousands, hundreds of North Americans buried because they wanted to destroy Hitler. How is it possible that their grandchildren can support Hitler's ideas? You need to understand your own history. The people from North America, they do believe in freedom, even if they killed indigenous people, even if they slaved the blacks, because they were also slaved in the South. And they needed to build a war between them, a tremendous one in 18 something. And we also had to do that for the ones that believed in the freedom at that point, among others, Jose Maria Melo, the general that died due to the fight for the revolutions in Mexico, our only indigenous president, also concealed by the history of the Franquistas that took ownership of the education in Colombia. We need to recover it. To that North American people, keep an eye on that because your roots are anchored on freedom. And that's why you have a statue in New York, a kind of Greek one. Lack of what history is forcing us to bring the Greek and the Roman history, but it doesn't matter. Because as I said, if you're going to go deeper into the new slaveries of drug ignorance, of the races that do not exist, then we need to bring the statue of freedom from New York to Cartagena, that they do want the freedom. An operation as the M19 style. Thank you for listening to me. These are the things that I wanted to share with you. You are very kind. Thank you, Mr. President. We request now to keep your seats while we take the fifth picture of the 15th Global Forum. For first part of the picture, we want to invite to scenario the main stakeholders of the Global Forum on Migration and Development. Each picture of this memorable moment.
Antoshihiya Tsushima Mui.
Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a Riohacha, La Guajira, una ciudad que históricamente se encuentra comprometida con las personas migrantes. Este año, La Guajira recibirá del 2 al 4 de septiembre la 15ª Cumbre del Foro Mundial sobre Migración y Desarrollo. Durante 3 días, el mundo se reunirá para debatir, construir y proponer soluciones en favor de una migración ordenada, segura y regular. 21 eventos paralelos, 5 paneles magistrales, 6 mesas redondas, 5 diálogos temáticos y cientos de participantes darán vida a este gran encuentro. Todo bajo el lema Migración regular, movilidad laboral y derechos humanos, pilares del desarrollo y el bienestar de las sociedades. Te esperamos en Riohacha, La Guajira, donde el diálogo global se encuentra con la calidez y el hacer local.
Con dignidad cumplimos. Gobierno de Colombia.